20 times a second. That's how fast a woodpecker's head slams into solid wood. Not 20 times a minute, not 20 times an hour, 20 times every single second. Each impact hits with a force strong enough to kill a human instantly. If you or I took even one hit like that, well, we would be unconscious before we hit the ground. Permanent brain damage, possibly death. Now picture a woodpecker doing this 12,000 times a day, every single day for its entire life. No helmet, no padding, no recovery time between strikes. And somehow, it walks away every time. No concussion, no bleeding, no brain damage at all. For decades, scientists were certain they knew why. They built an entire theory around it. Engineers even copied it to design better helmets for humans. Except in 2022, a group of researchers ran the numbers again and discovered the popular explanation was completely wrong. Today, we're uncovering the real reason a woodpecker's brain survives an impact that would end a human life instantly, and why the answer took scientists by surprise. Let's start with the raw numbers, because they are almost hard to believe. When a woodpecker strikes a tree, its head decelerates at over 1,000 times the force of gravity. To put that in perspective, a human brain begins to suffer serious concussion damage at around 80 to 100 times the force of gravity. A woodpecker experiences roughly 10 times that on every single strike. Car crash test engineers consider anything above 300 Gs potentially fatal to a human. A woodpecker blows past that number with room to spare thousands of times a day. And it's not just the force, it's the sheer repetition. Woodpeckers can strike a tree up to 20 times per second during a drumming burst. And over the course of a single day, some species deliver more than 12,000 impacts to their heads. 12,000 in one day. If a human sustained even a fraction of that many high-force head impacts, doctors would expect severe traumatic brain injury, permanent cognitive damage, possibly death. The woodpecker does this as casually as we breathe. So the question scientists have asked for over half a century is simple. How is this even biologically possible? For decades, there was one dominant explanation, and it made intuitive sense. Scientists believe the woodpecker's skull worked like a built-in helmet, a shock absorber. The idea was that spongy bone inside the skull, along with a unique elastic structure, cushioned the brain from impact, absorbing the force before it ever reached the delicate tissue inside. This idea became so widely accepted that it left the world of biology entirely. Engineers studied woodpecker skulls to design better bicycle helmets. Companies used the woodpecker model to build shock-absorbing materials for phone cases, packaging, and protective equipment. For years, textbooks, documentaries, and even scientific papers repeated the same explanation. The woodpecker survives because its skull absorbs the shock. It seemed settled. It seemed obvious. Except no one had actually tested it properly, not with the technology that existed in 2022. And when a team of researchers finally did, they found something that overturned 50 years of assumption. In 2022, researchers led by biomechanics expert Sam Van Wassenberg used high-speed cameras and detailed skull scans to track exactly what happens inside a woodpecker's head during impact. What they found was the opposite of what everyone expected. The woodpecker's skull does not act as a shock absorber at all. If anything, their research showed the skull behaves like a rigid, stiff hammer. Think about what that means. If the skull cushioned every impact, it would also reduce the force of each strike. And a softer strike means less wood removed with every peck. For a bird that depends on drilling through solid wood to find food and build nests, a cushioned skull would actually be a disadvantage. So evolution didn't build a pillow inside the woodpecker's head. It built a hammer, a skull almost perfectly rigid, designed to transfer maximum force into the wood, not absorb it. Which raises an even stranger question. If the skull isn't protecting the brain, what is? The answer came down to something far simpler than a built-in helmet. Size. A woodpecker's brain is tiny, and that size difference matters enormously. Researchers found that because of their small brain and skull size, Woodpeckers can withstand roughly 11 to 20 times greater head acceleration than a much larger human brain could ever survive. Here's why size makes such a massive difference. A smaller brain experiences less strain during rapid deceleration than a larger one, purely due to the physics of mass and force distribution. The same impact that would tear at the delicate tissue of a large human brain barely stresses a woodpecker's much smaller one. On top of that, the impact itself lasts an incredibly short amount of time, a fraction of a millisecond, which further limits how much force the brain actually absorbs. And the orientation of the brain inside the skull plays a role too, positioned in a way that spreads the force more evenly rather than concentrating it at a single vulnerable point. So it isn't one dramatic adaptation, it's a combination of small size, brief impact duration, and precise brain positioning, working together to do what no padding ever could. Researchers estimate woodpeckers operate with a safety margin roughly 6 to 7 times below the threshold that would actually cause brain injury. Not because they're cushioned, because physics itself is on their side. If this kind of hidden bird science surprises you as much as it surprised me, do me a quick favor and hit that like button right now. It helps this story reach a lot more people who genuinely enjoy it. Here's what makes this story even more fascinating. Even after this discovery, scientists admit the full picture still isn't complete. Some researchers point out that woodpeckers regularly strike far tougher material than wood, including metal poles and hard surfaces, situations that go beyond what typical studies have measured, which means small size and brief impact duration may not be the entire answer. There are other structures inside a woodpecker's skull that still puzzle scientists. An unusually long, curved tongue bone that wraps around the entire skull, almost like an internal safety strap. Specific neck and jaw muscles that engage in the exact instant before impact, potentially helping stabilize the head's trajectory. Researchers now believe the neuromuscular coordination between a woodpecker's neck, beak, and skull, timed with astonishing precision, may play just as important a role as the physical size of the brain itself. In other words, the woodpecker isn't just built to survive impact. It may be actively controlling the impact itself in real time, thousands of times a day, without ever thinking about it. Something no human engineer has managed to fully replicate, even now. Here's what makes this story so quietly remarkable. This isn't some rare extreme event that happens once in a woodpecker's life. This is its entire existence. Every single day, this bird subjects its brain to forces that would end a human life in an instant, and walks away completely unharmed, over and over for years. Not through magic, not through some single miracle adaptation, but through millions of years of evolution fine-tuning size, timing, structure, and force into one of the most extreme survival systems in the animal kingdom. A system so precise that even now, with all our technology, we're still trying to fully understand how it works. So the next time you hear that fast, rhythmic drumming sound coming from a tree nearby, remember what's actually happening. A bird is slamming its head into solid wood at forces that would kill you or me instantly, thousands of times a day, and it's not surviving by luck. It's surviving through one of nature's most quietly extraordinary engineering solutions. Not a built-in helmet, not a cushion, just precision, physics, and millions of years of evolution, working together in a way we're only beginning to understand. If this changed the way you'll look at the next woodpecker you hear, subscribe to Birdhearts so you never miss the next hidden superpower in the bird world. And tell me in the comments, did you already believe the shock absorber theory before watching this? I'll see you in the next one.